house.
I think, are we? Are we? Are we?
Should I move a little closer?
You look pretty good there, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying
I
to be
think I think
comfy.
we've got a nice little area over here.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, man. So I think let me do one look at the little scene window out of here. There it is. Perfect. Cool. Yeah. So you see my little comments window there.
How
It's
big is the
beautiful.
text?
It's big enough. Got two people on right now.
Oh yeah.
Hello everyone. How we doing? Joe Rapp here with Jack. Tonight we're gonna be talking about Bitcoin and how it's gonna transcend us out of the dark ages into lightness. And we're going to be getting really philosophical with some conversation around Bitcoin and, around the kind of the odd time it came around in history where we have these new epochs happening and these transitions and powers, and how maybe it wasn't by mistake. So if you've got any questions, you can leave them in the comment sections the entire time. We're enjoying a little bit of our own beverages tonight, so if you're drinking something too,
Cheers.
definitely cheers to you, brother. Cheers to you out there,
Cheers.
and thanks for joining us tonight. So, um, this is a part of Bitcoin Money Peace.
Yes.
So Bitcoin Money Peace, I love that name. I was doing the adoption channel before, but Bitcoin Money Peace for me seems like that just paints such a better picture about what BTC actually is, what Bitcoin is, and it gives people like this sign of hope and peace.
I
And
mean, it gives me hope. I mean, that was like Michael Saylor's like thing is like he was asked, what did you see at the end of the rabbit hole? And because he went through that whole process and he said, I see hope. And it just so happens he owns hope.com, which will redirect you to his Bitcoin page. But yeah, I mean, I think that's like the most bullish thing that people see is like people come to Bitcoin for the gains and they stay for like the life lessons and like the outlook that they see because like as you become more aware of what this program could be, how it changes people and how it's changed yourself and your perspective of the world, like you only see a better world coming out of this. So that's what keeps people here is like most people came here because they understand like something is wrong. And then when you finally, look through the answer, you see just this completely different world of something a lot better than where we're at. So I think hope is like the best way to put it.
yeah, so it came around at a time for like people that are just watching that may not necessarily be familiar with it. Bitcoin was first released to the world on October 31st in 2008.
Yeah.
And if you remember that time, it was right as we were going through the last financial crisis and the housing crisis. And uh, it's in the actual main line of the code, it refers to an article in Europe at the time saying the chancellor's on the second bailout to the banks. So it was a clear indication that it was created at least some interpret as a direct response of the financial crisis.
Yeah.
But one thing that's interesting is that like Satoshi would have had to factor in a lot of things like history, monetary policy. They would have had to know on how currencies work,
I mean, yeah, like game value or game theory.
game theory.
Like I think just like the whole like how the mining works too and how the difficulty adjustment affects like the mining outputs, how um, you know, if you had more people mining Bitcoin, the difficulty adjustment is going to change. So the protocol is still going to release the same amount of coins at the same amount of time. So it doesn't matter how many people are mining it. You're only going to get 6.25 Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
after this happening. And so, like, if you were to relate that to what gold was doing, if you would have more people mining gold, you would just have more gold,
Yeah.
and be directly proportional to the people mining it. Whereas that doesn't happen with Bitcoin. Um, the advantage that you get by being the bigger guy or having the stronger tech is you're more likely to be rewarded more coins, but you can't make more of those coins come out. So
Mm-hmm.
like Like a good example is like if we were invaded by an alien race where they had the superior technology to mine Bitcoin,
Mhm.
so some supercomputer, um, it'd still be 6.25 Bitcoin
Mhm.
every 10 minutes. So that doesn't change. So like that whole theory really creates like the entrenchment into the financial system and how that affects the price. So I think that is so in depth that like it feels like Satoshi is like either a grouping of people or just this supremely, insane, brilliant guy who just had everything. Like he checked all of his boxes like three times of what this product needed to do because like as an economist, like are you actually who's going to think of that kind of technology in 2008? It had to have been being developed in 2007, 2008. So like these are like pretty crazy concepts even for 2008. Where were we with technology? I don't even think we had an iPhone yet. So
No,
like
no.
you really have to put that in perspective. It's like who was this person that did it? And there's something mystical about it, just because of how perfect it seems.
SegWit classic address formats. So, I mean, SegWit is something a lot of exchanges have adopted. I mean, segregated witness. I think that's what the last fork brought on. Yeah, so I mean, SegWit addresses are an upgrade and an added feature. Taproots in the forks. I'll get back on that. Don't really know too much about that. New features added into Bitcoin Core. Second layer stuff. So we're seeing a lot of the Lightning Network now and new second layer features being added in. So I think that'll continue going forward.
Yeah,
But with Satoshi though, like I think it's you're absolutely right. And they she the group they pretty much added they went back to a bunch of the existing projects and then just look what worked and then put them all together in a process that actually worked, right? That's why Nick
yeah,
Szabo's talked about a lot, Hal Finney,
yeah.
right? Um,
There's all those theories of that these guys had to have teamed up and done it together because like it seems like they all had their skills and sets that would were all used in BTC.
Now, one of the things that I think is incredible for humanity is the fact that like this is a form of hard currency, and when you look back in history, when society has functioned off of a currency that's hard money or off a monetary system that's hard money, usually that society's in prosperity. Savings
Yeah,
has value in the
typically,
future,
yeah,
and 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 if you look at the way that the current financial system that exists around the world is set up, it's inflationary. It's set up where there's theft through the debasement of the currency and inflation. They create more currency. So, like, it's just, for me, it's fascinating that Bitcoin came around at a time when, like, we start to see the true effects of inflation. And it's incredible. Like, if you saved in dollars over the last what X amount of what
you're screwed.
since 71 arguably, then you would have lost money through inflation.
Yeah, I
So
mean, yeah, averaged it out. Yeah, you would have
so what do
lost.
you think this leads to for, like, that kind of enlightenment, having savings in the future and money that's worth something going forward, a time,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
value to time, as you said, time value kind of
I
thing.
mean, economically, it's going to change like the way governments operate. It's going to force them to play by the actual rules of economics, not
Hmm.
their own. So
Hmm.
they could change those rules because they could steal. So nothing really applied to them per se. But like, I think what it's really going to change is like, I guess it's going to really attack people's like first principles, like what is money, because like that is kind of like the beginning of the rabbit hole that you kind of go down when you're learning about Bitcoin. It's like something is wrong, and you hear about this new technology, but like the fundamental question is like, what is money? What's the purpose of money? And by doing that and answering those, like you kind of get this idea of like, why are you even here?
Hmm.
On why you?
Hmm.
Why are you here? Why are you giving up like the two of the scarcest things you have is your time and your energy. Like, why are you giving up your time and energy for this money? Like, what is its overall purpose? And by reevaluating that assessment and assumption of like what is money, because most people just assume, money is the dollar,
Hmm.
and there's no question about it because that's just what you're taught and
Right,
that's it.
right, right,
And
right.
people heard like, oh, there's gold, and there's quite a lot of people in the United States who still believe that we're under a gold standard.
Yeah.
So no one really knows what is money, and they haven't really questioned that. But by doing so, like, you kind of change those first principles that I kind of talked about, and that in itself has been like quite enlightening because then you're starting to talk about like, okay, like what is your purpose here? Like, is my purpose, say your purpose is to, this is heaven on earth and you're here to create, like, okay, you can do whatever you want, and in a free society, money is the most exchanged good, really. So it better be scarce. Someone can't create it.
Hmm.
So there's all these properties of money that we could get into
Yeah.
that need to be fulfilled for it to really remain money. But if that is leaking energy,
Yeah.
so like you're storing your time and energy into this thing, so that you're doing it so that you're converting your specialty into someone else's specialty that you can enjoy, and you can hedge against uncertainty with it. There's all these things that you can do with it, but if you're constant leaking energy, it's like, what is your purpose then? Like,
One of the things that, but in so if we looked at it just from a savings perspective,
yeah,
Bitcoin's the best performing asset as a savings over the last 10
maybe,
plus years.
yeah, maybe one year it's not, like in one of the, I
Yeah,
think the two crazy bear markets.
yeah, maybe one, or maybe one of the years it's not. Um, it's on average, if you've bought and you've held Bitcoin, you've outperformed the markets and you've outperformed saving in alternative things such as the dollar as a currency,
Hmm.
or or any other asset. So it's incredible for me because people, and I know that you look at markets and you know that they drop and stuff, but if you look at this asset that's outperformed year over year and you're just even saving a small percentage in it, it does kind of give you hope going forward, knowing that you do have the ability to afford things in the future because you have a scarce financial asset that is growing in value, and that takes us out of this whole kind of control that we've all been under over the last 100 plus years through central banking. The
Yeah.
fact that the money system's controlled by a small few at the top of the pyramid, and the central bankers that control the money supply have first access to it. It's referred to as the quintillionaires, or
Yep.
the quintillion effect. And there is this disparity that exists in the world today because of that system. So, uh, and we watch a lot of Kaiser Report, and the Kaisers, Max Kaiser, and Stacy have talked about the idea that Bitcoin is that technology that will bring us out of a period of dark ages into enlightenment, and we're going through a renaissance, just as the church and state. The last time that society was where it was, where the monarchy, the lords and the ladies,
Yeah.
hundreds of years
The
ago,
1%
the
now.
1% that had the control over the population through the church. But then the Black Plague discredited the church, and then there was this period of enlightenment, and society moved forward. So we look at that, and for me, it's needed at a time right now, because you look at where society is functioning as far as the economy. We talked about the fourth turning a lot,
Yeah.
the Thucydides trap, a lot of these long-term business cycles coming to an end, and it looks real dark, and factually the numbers and the data says it's going to be real dark. But maybe Bitcoin in that time is what brings us into enlightenment, because you have an escape, you have an exit
Yeah.
plan, you're
That's
able to
like the
actually do it.
theory, is like Bitcoin is like this pressure valve that's going to kind of calm things out and smooth things out for when the transition happens, which you could argue it's happening now, but that's going to be like how things don't get as bad because there's always a way out, and it's kind of just finding it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But like the fourth turning is like this crazy, theory that like history repeats itself, because so the theory is like, um, history creates generations, right, of
Mm-hmm.
people, like millennials, Gen X, Gen Z,
Mm-hmm.
boomers, blah, and generations create history. So where when you're born really affects who you become, And so there's this idea that every I think it's on average like 22 years, you change you change into a new turning, so like a new generation of people. And so like you really compare like millennials versus like the boomers. They're kind of inverse to each other because of when they were born in history. So boomers were born right after World War II, and so they kind of rebelled against their parents, and they had um, this great like youth phase. And we're kind of so the thesis is right now is that the fourth turning occurred in 2008, which was the 2008 crisis. And you can look back. The last turning was the Great Depression, and then it led into World War II. So the idea is that 2008 was the beginning of the fourth turning. That was when everything changed. And now we're moving towards this climax of typically war. That's what history says. It doesn't have to be that way. War will lead us into this new period. Society kind of collapses, and then we find anew and rebuild through our institutions. But there's this theory that Bitcoin came at the perfect time. I mean, we say it was like a product of 2008, which it appears to be, but like the third turning was pre 2008. If he built this in 2003, maybe Bitcoin doesn't even work, because 2008 was like whoever got it got it. Like they knew something was terribly wrong. Um, and so it was able to create this small core of people that had these true beliefs because they were they were directly affected by it, or whatever. They had beliefs in sound money. And so you're able to build this insane group of the hodlers to kind of keep entrenching this and moving this product forward, where if we happened before 2008, maybe that group doesn't exist because no one even knows that there's something wrong yet. So like that's kind of a crazy thing to think of. And then assuming we don't mess this up, like what if this is the fifth turning? Like what if this changes that loop we're stuck in history? So if you want to get kind of some context, you can Google the fourth turning and look at how far back the authors go.
Yeah.
But there's at least 3 or 4 cycles in which this has occurred through history. The other major events were Civil War and Revolutionary War. So there's all these generations of people that were born in these
I
times.
think that was written in the 90s, right? I'll pull up the screen too. Are we fuzzy? Are we blurry out there?
I don't think so.
No. Is that my eyes? No,
But what is crazy is that what if this brings us out of that loop, because it is so pure.
So there's another turning because
exactly
because
there's we end the loop. And what if there's this thesis that this is it, and gold couldn't do that because it wasn't good at portability and it became corrupted. So as long as we don't allow Bitcoin to become corrupted, this could be like that breakthrough technology that brings us into this different era. And it will help by doing that because of it's going to change people's core beliefs, and that's going to change how people act. And like once you start saving, thinking of the future, you're hedging against volatility because the future is already uncertain as it is. So like why should your money also be uncertain? Like you want certainty. You want to know that what you own is what you own, and there's no changing that. You own a certain percentage of the network, that's your score. You want to know that that's never going to change if you don't spend it. And once you can start thinking of the future like that, you're really going to be saving more. It means you're going to be consuming less. And then maybe we can actually start to look at environmental problems. Like what if we can't fix that until we adopt this technology? It seems like it's a stretch, but it also seems like that's a very high possibility. Like you have to change the incentive structure to do that.
Yeah, the incentive structure is a big part of it. Like being able to change the mechanism at which people consume or don't consume things. Like right now, we manage the economy through inflation and deflation of interest rates by the central bank, right?
But and then debt.
And then
you
debt.
just you don't save.
So it's never
you don't
it's
save.
never
It's
good.
debt.
But if people knew that they had a currency that like actually had value and that there was value to saving it for the longer term,
Yeah.
Would you naturally not spend extra money on things you didn't need because you knew that you wanted to save for the future? Your money had value, so you could plan that way and do it. And I think that's what the biggest thing that people don't understand yet, because we haven't, at least us, our generation, even our parents, and then
They've never
since
lived under a
they've
gold
never lived
standard.
under that type of gold standard, so that
Yeah.
prosperity is not really known yet.
Or like,
Um,
yeah, and like, your grandparents still say save your money, but like you're the loser if you do that. If you've been saving dollar bills, like
Speaking of
you've
prosperity,
just lost probably everything at this point.
yeah, you're the uncle that was putting the money under the bed.
Yeah, that's not who you want to be.
It's not who,
And
and
like once you start saving in like a closed loop system, so there's the terminal inflation is zero. That means that like the energy that you've stored there is there forever because it's going to represent like all of creation. So whatever like that GDP is, that's like how that's your appreciation per year. So if it's 3% and no Bitcoin is lost,
hmm
you're going up at 3% a year. Like, and there's this kind of interesting concept of like, so that Bitcoin is always going to have value even after your life. So like whatever you do is your life is fully going to be seen in like a closed money system because someone's not stealing it. So like if you were to die with Bitcoin and you were, you didn't structure any way for your relatives to get the keys, you're essentially deleting that Bitcoin forever. People won't know that it's gone, but it
hmm
will essentially be gone. And you're basically donating it to the entire network. So you're
contributing it
donating,
to the community.
and if you do some sort of trust or whatever,
Yeah.
it's going to where you wanted it. So either way, that your life, like your being, your values are all going to be passed
Mm.
down forever. And so when you're leaking through a inflationary system, you're essentially making people's work meaningless, like
That's
in
a
a
good
way.
point, because what now can people pass on to future generations that provides the most value?
It's typically like real estate and very liquid gold,
Like
and
maybe
then
knowledge, or those kind of hidden
that's
things.
it. Yeah,
But now,
or like something that's
yeah.
priceless.
So, because like your money right now, if you passed on dollars to someone in an inheritance or anything, it gets taxed, or you're going to lose it through inflation, tax through inflation, because it's not backed by anything. So this is the first time that, even that's a great point about your life being having more value to life in
Yeah,
general. That's incredible. Because we all want to pass on something. I think all of us are, we're seeking these goals, and the fact that we don't have anything today that we can really hold on to, that is considered to be valuable by the rest of the world, everyone else in the ecosystem. Um, I think people just aren't trained for that yet. So,
yeah,
but
it's
with value though, I want to talk about the charts real quick,
yeah,
because
yeah.
we see it here today. Like, was a big deal because we almost hit the all-time high.
I mean, CNBC said we did. I mean, we did on Kraken. We technically did in terms of
Let us know what
market
you
cap.
think.
So
We're touching. We're
yeah,
at, so it's at 19.6, 19.7. They
what is
say
it at right now?
20. Well,
Nineteen
well,
thousand five
right
hundred right
right now
now.
we're at 19.5, but the all-time high everyone's considering 20,000.
Yeah,
I've already had some people contacting me, like, saying, "Oh yeah, I know, pulled back and said it's up 150% in a year or so." Like, we're not gonna be on those rockets all the way up, but there is a liquidity issue. We're seeing right now that PayPal and a lot of these institutions are starting to buy as much as they can, and it
yeah,
seems like there's this whole new layer of BTC, um, a new layer almost of exchanges, or those that have the first access to the supply, and then the rest of us that trade for it. That could be changing, where you might not have as much access to Bitcoin, or you might not be able to buy through the traditional exchanges, because PayPal, or any of these bigger institutions are going to come in and buy it all up, kind of thing.
yeah. I mean, if you look at like just the past weekend, we on Wednesday we went to 19.5 and we immediately rejected that. It was like a huge dump. It was like $1,000, like very very quickly, and I was like, okay, it's not happening anytime soon. But I think what happened was we got that dump because it was in the tail end of Wednesday. It was actually kind of early in Wednesday. It was like Wednesday morning, and then late in the afternoon it actually started dumping.
Mm-hmm.
But people were probably already kind of checking out financially for the long weekend for Thanksgiving. So you had banks closing, you had institutions closing. So you had like the core buyer of Bitcoin now leaving their positions,
Mm-hmm.
meaning, if you assume the same amount of sellers, you're just removing your buyers. So you see a lot less liquidity on the buy side. So we saw this major sell off, whether it was the necessary correction or not. A whale, like, I don't know, like, what kind of whale doesn't know what they're holding at this point?
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be some motive behind it if it was a whale that was dumping to get out, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it was. I think it was just people that don't know what they're doing kind of taking their profits at these high prices. And then today, it's like you immediately see the CME gap up like $1,300. So that's the futures, the CME futures. So those are like the big institutions, the big boy traders are on the CMEs trading the
Yep.
futures. That's the biggest gap up we've seen. So we see this huge ramp up today. So it's showing us that there's serious demand for Bitcoin, and since the halvening, we had excess liquidity, but now that's been eaten up since the halvening, and now it's like you just kind of whatever the miners drip in, that's all that they can drip in.
Yep.
You don't have this other pool, like that pool has been pulled out. So it's like I'm trying to think of like who is sitting on a lot of Bitcoin that doesn't know what they're holding.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't answer that because like I don't know who these people
Yeah,
are,
yeah, yeah.
but like I was talking to you before this, like I think like we're gonna see this like anti FOMO happen where people are like they see this wave of buying coming. Not only that, but the halvening effects are taking in place, and they know what Bitcoin has done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have a couple of cycles of halvenings to lean back on for history, and it's like, who has a lot of Bitcoin that doesn't know what Bitcoin does at this point? Who's gonna sell? Like, who in their right mind is gonna sell right now? It's only people that it's either miners or people that don't get it. And I feel like if you have a lot of Bitcoin, you don't get it. So then you're only getting like the mining, and then just like retail that doesn't know, and they maybe got lucky and had a decent amount, but I feel like you're going to get institutional FOMO and then anti FOMO on the sellers, which is just going to create this insane price divide. And it's like, who knows where price is going to
Mm-hmm.
settle? Like, we could see 100,000 like very fast
Mm-hmm.
in that type of scenario where even if a miner knows, like, hey, let's bite the cost right now, like, this is really happening because the institutional money wants it, like, you could see major price disconnect.
Yeah.
I think that's like starting to happen. Like, today was just proof. Like, GBTC is up 23%, and I think at the all-time high during today, I think it was up 20, and it closed at 23. So like that says like people are afraid of not holding this thing overnight. The people that can't buy off these exchanges, they have to go through a GBTC or like a MicroStrategy to get any type of exposure. That just says to me like they're afraid to not let this thing go overnight.
Yeah. Well, I'm not good at actually drawing charts and stuff, but we know again the all-time high again, December of 2017, anywhere from 19,600 to 20,000. And today we were just skirting. We hit 19.5, 19.6 in a few spots.
Coinbase
Uh,
went up
Coinbase
to
went up.
19,873,
And the point being though is
16
that
under.
there's so much value to time and money. Um,
Yeah.
Let me get the screens out of here. There we go. All right, so I wanna kind of get on the topic about Bitcoin and the blockchain also being the first time in history that we have a record of history that is immutable and it can't be corrupted.
Yeah.
One thing that we've never had in society is uh, a piece of information that hasn't been corrupted. Like books and handwritten texts are the closest thing that we have
Yeah.
up until the internet. And even with books and texts, like we know through like the Bible and a lot of religious educations, and not just that, other writings have been interpreted and then rewritten time and time again.
Yeah.
But the blockchain is the first time, or Bitcoin is the first time in history that we have an immutable record of the past. So technically, from here on out, we will know what truth is. There's no arguing the truth because there's this mathematical equation that is verifying everything that has ever happened.
Hmm.
And what does that lead to in prosperity in the future as far as information? Because a lot of what I feel like people have experienced today has been through some type of deception of information,
Yeah.
or control comes out of that. um, but we know that if the people have the information and they know the truth, I believe that they do the right thing a lot of the time.
Yeah. So the way I kind of think through it is like at some point, like all the big players in the space, all the companies, all their addresses are going to be public. So like from there on out, you're going to, unless I mean they could always open another one that you don't know about.
Mm.
But we'll just say generally, you're going to know what where their money is moving, right? You're going to know. So like all these public addresses of all these major companies will be known. You can see between countries where the money is moving, so you can kind of economically get this truth of like what is going on economically in the world. Maybe you don't get truth anywhere else,
Right.
which is very well be possible, but you would see what happens economically. And now, like when you say that, if you allow this to build longer and longer and longer, the more people are going to know about it, right? And the more people that know about it, the less likely it could ever be stopped, unless they are able to confiscate like enough Bitcoin where like they have control, meaning the governments. And I don't really know how that plays out, but
Mm-hmm.
if everyone knows that this is a technology that brought society to good,
Mm-hmm.
any attempt to go against that, I feel like would be rejected
Mm-hmm.
to like debase or whatever,
Yeah.
because like really like right now would be the time to do it before it has this chance. Like the government keeps taking in the Bitcoin and debasing it and making you transact in something else so that they can, that's how they would neutralize this network is
Mm-hmm.
they just keep getting all the Bitcoin and then eventually there's no Bitcoin left to trade. And now that they know about it, like they won't prevent something like that happening again
Mm.
because it also requires entrenchment because like you can't do pre-mines and all these other things.
Yeah.
So like this is our only shot. Like that's it. Everyone knows about it now. You can't do it again because it's going to be too easy to attack,
Yep.
too small. There's no incentive.
Mm-hmm.
So like the entrenchment is there. It's like now you have to protect it, and you have to protect it long enough where it has this long enough history where no government will dare to fuck with it because they know the consequences of what they're doing. Because
Mm-hmm.
once people, I feel like this is the only chance for someone with malintent to take action. Otherwise, I don't know how you do it because you'll just see Bitcoin, you'll have this blockchain, and you'll know
The
that that's
network's
the
too
answer.
strong. The network's too strong. It's way too strong.
It
I gotta
is.
check one quick little setting on the camera because it's tripping me out, y'all. Because I think
What is it?
Bam,
You zoom it in?
bam.
I can't see the
Oh
TV.
yeah, it's better. I think we're more clear now. Yeah, we're more clear now.
So yeah, I think that's gonna change. I think that's gonna change like how all this plays out. It's like it's just this whole like thought experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could go so many ways, and we're all trying to figure out which way it's gonna go. But it feels like this
Yeah,
is our only chance, and
yeah,
this is the only hope to bring us out of this,
yeah.
unless we create some new technology that's so new that the
Mm-hmm.
government doesn't see this
Mm-hmm.
espionage ploy to get into the system and tear it out because like at some point there's so
That's
many companies going to be invested in it that
mm-hmm.
you can't ban it anymore.
That's almost the beauty about game theory, though.
Yeah.
Game theory allows for the competition to exist uh, in the acceptance and adoption of the protocol, because once one country does it, the other country has to do it, or once one company starts acquiring Bitcoin, the other company has to start doing it.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, then there's a risk of them not competing in the future, and and it almost it's almost self fulfilling in the sense that it ensures it won't die. right?
At this point, yeah. Like, so yeah, you have to think of it like you're going to get governments that probably try to ban it. So, first of all, it's going to be quite difficult for the US to do that. I don't think they want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they know what they're dealing with. They're just kind of dragging their feet on it.
Right.
That's fingers crossed. But there's evidence that they can't ban it. So there is a Supreme case ruling that I don't remember the exact name of the product, but there was some digital product. It's a code. They went to the Supreme Court. They said you can't ban this because they printed out the code of their product and they said this is our product on a piece of paper, which all it is text, freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
So you're banning text.
Mm.
So
Yep.
what would you be banning? Like, can you not own this, or can you not let a computer read that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. Like, so then you're getting into like some really crazy topics. So that would A, have to be overturned.
Mm-hmm.
B, you then have to overturn freedom of speech. So I don't see that happening. So like you're gonna get someone that wants to ban it, and then there's gonna be that country that says, "Come to us.
Mm-hmm.
We'll give you a discount if you buy your Visa in Bitcoin. We'll give you 90% off. Whatever.
Yeah.
Bring your wealth here. We
Yeah.
want it." And that's gonna create all these crazy incentives for people to change, and the weak currencies are just gonna die. Like it's bound to happen.
The idea of the idea of a new currency makes sense to me, but we'll go back that last little bit that you said before the currencies would die. What were you like? Say
Like
that again.
like company or countries accepting it.
Yeah,
So like
because we're
well,
seeing
I
that
kind of already.
we're seeing that right now with Iran, for example.
Yeah, Iran is doing it, Venezuela is doing it. So you're getting
Mm-hmm.
now. So right now, like you have companies starting to do it, and now
Yep.
you're gonna have like uh, the rogue countries doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So Iran, Venezuela. So the people that we sanctioned through SWIFT, they need a way to transact. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why China's really starting to race out these products, their own digital yuan or however
Mm-hmm.
you pronounce
Yep.
it,
Yep.
so that they can transact outside of United States rule,
Mm-hmm.
so they can transact in their own currency. But then you're going to get this thing. Well, this neutral protocol exists, or it's an even playing ground. I don't want to transact in your digital currency that you can manipulate over me. Let's just pick this neutral asset that neither of us can manipulate. So it's like every single country has an interest in switching out of the dollar because they're only going to benefit, because at worst the playing ground is going to be even again.
Mm-hmm.
And at best, maybe they get in early and now they have an economic say. But like the worst case is they stay with this system and they get taken advantage of because we just export our debts
Right.
with our
Right.
dollars. And so every country except the United States has an interest in changing. And so it's going to create this like weird thing between countries where, like, if one bans it, the other one's going to accept it, and the free market's going to do what it wants to do. And I feel like you're making a big bet by going against it, and you have everything to lose but not much to really gain except more manipulation. So it seems like this isn't going to happen, but I mean anything
Yeah.
could happen. I
Yeah.
don't want to say that it can't, but
There's also this thought about Bitcoin and this new technology affecting nation states and governance, and the idea that if people have the ability to save in money that's not created by the government, and if governments are going to kind of get themselves in this spiderweb trap of adopting Bitcoin because they have to, because it's competition in the beginning, nation state versus nation state, but then at some point, BTC, it connects us as a whole, and maybe all of a sudden nation states don't exist anymore. Um, we talked about the sovereign individual. That's
mm-hmm.
the other one. It's just for me. Let's dig into that a little bit because
I mean, I haven't done really enough like full research on it, but I've listened to a few podcasts kind of on that subject, and it's like the idea of like humans have the inclination to always group.
mm,
Like that's just deep in our DNA. Like if you didn't group up with other humans, you died straight up. So we always have this tendency to make our tribes. Or so I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about how you're going to get these smaller forms of governance that are really nimble. and really they can move very quick, and how that's going to be kind of more effective. So like if you think of Bitcoin, it's going to be like this global protocol in which everyone has to follow, and then that's going to limit the role of the government
Mm-hmm.
because they're not going to have control of the money. And then like you're going to start thinking of like what is the government's purpose, like what are they really doing.
There's certain
And it's going to
functions.
start uniting people because like we're all going to be united under this one idea and this one thing. So we're all going to kind of speak that common language of Bitcoin is the standard, you know. So that's kind of like the collective knowledge idea. But it's like now that we have the internet too, like you start attacking Bitcoiners, the Bitcoiners are all going to kind of align.
Mm-hmm.
They're even going to align even if they don't live with each other. Like, you know, who's more of your ally, like a Bitcoin maximalist or a fiat
Mm-hmm.
maximalist? Like obviously
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if they're American or not. Like, you know, like whoever that Bitcoin person is, it's like you're kind of like in this group of family. So it's going to change the role of government. And like once you have government starting to attack it, like it's just going to create these crazy incentives where whoever's attacking it is going to be the loser because all those people are going to just migrate. And it's like, at what point of the network, like, are you actually going to stand up for the
yeah.
network?
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of people will say right now, all like a lot of the hardcore maximalists will say like, I'll fight for the network to the
Mm-hmm.
death at this point.
To the
So
death. To
so
the
like
death.
that's really going to change like how the governance is going to work. And like I just don't even know where it's going to lead us.
Well, we
Like,
talk about like currency. So we know with declining world powers, one of the last things to fall is the trust in the justice system or
yeah,
rule of law, right? And then also trust in the currency. And I think in this country, people haven't woken up to the fact yet. Well, they know that the inefficiencies that exist in the financial system, but I don't
not
think
everybody.
I don't think they've fully woken up to the amount of theft and inefficiencies even within the money that they use on a day-to-day basis. So once people wake up to that idea that you know next year you could lose 20% of what you hold in dollars because this year they created how much percent of overall money that's ever existed?
I think it's the M2 chart. So it's like I think it's 21% of all dollars in the economy right now were created in 2020.
21% of all dollars that were ever
Something like
created
that. Yeah.
in the economy were created in 2020 by the Federal Reserve Bank. So like once that starts to set in, I think that we're going to see this kind of self-fulfilling adoption and understanding of what money is, and then maybe that is the final shift from trust in the dollar, and then whether it's in Bitcoin or something else. I'd like to think Bitcoin, but we know nation states. We're going to see the fight. We're watching currency wars play out right now, so that's
Yeah,
going to.
I read that like an article today. It was like I don't remember who posted it, but it said that governments are more worried about stable coins right now
Mm.
than Bitcoin, which is kind of weird because I feel like Bitcoin is the final boss. So they're worried about the stable coins, so they want to create their own quote unquote stable coin that represents a dollar or whatever, so that they're gonna just kill every other stable coin. There's no
Mm.
need for it anymore.
Yep.
So that's what they're worried about to start with. But I think the final boss is really like it's really Bitcoin
It's all about Bitcoin.
because like I don't know. I feel like it's like maybe it's my bias, but I feel like it's spiraling out of control pretty quick. Like it feels like there's crazy FOMO, and it feels like companies know something is wrong, but like I don't know.
You look at the
People are
economy.
still talking about the stock market, but I feel like more people are now talking about Bitcoin than the stock market.
Those Robinhood traders. If you're a Robinhood trader, you just gotta like come on over. Like, what are you doing? Like you see a couple percent move, right? Although some stocks have seen tens of 20%
Yeah, I
moves,
mean,
but
you could outperform Bitcoin, but it just doesn't seem
but
likely.
you're trading with the shit. You're trading with dollars, though. Like, what are
Exactly.
you doing? You're not preparing for what we're talking about here.
So you'll know like this is getting out of control if you see a lot of companies do the micro strategy where they change their treasury
Mm-hmm.
their treasury reserve asset. I don't know if people are going to do 100%, but if you start seeing companies say, you know, we can't perform economic calculation in the dollar anymore, that's when you know to fucking run for the bunker. Because if you can't figure out what economic truth is anymore because
Mm-hmm.
it's so bad, like it's going to cascade really
Mm-hmm.
quickly. And I don't know the number directly off the top of my head, but it was something like, what was it? Our first $1 trillion of debt took us until like 1990.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from 1776
Mm-hmm.
to 1990, it took us to do a trillion. 1 trillion. So that's like 200 years, over 200. And it took us like 2 months to do 3 trillion. So,
But this is the fiat.
so
This
yeah,
is the
that
fiat
it's,
standard, though. This is the life.
you
This is
need
the
more
life. This is
manipulation.
the life you live within fiat currencies, within central banking, within the financial system that was set up to, act this way, right?
Yeah,
But you can opt out
you can. Now you
into
can.
a currency and a form of money that is not only unconfiscatable, but you can't be stolen through inflation and debasement. So I
Yeah,
mean, you can
so
stack Sats. That's the whole point of this. Is that like, you just gotta stack Sats.
yeah. The unconfiscatable part is like, I think a big part that I want to hit on, because like we need to dig deeper, and I
Mm-hmm.
need to kind of do some more self-reflecting
Mm-hmm.
on like the upheaval of like first principles and how Bitcoin causes this and how it affects more parts of your life than you kind of can think. But the unconfiscatable part is like really hits on the peace part too, because let's assume like let's assume it is unconfiscatable. So every nation has the technology through multi-sig.
Mm-hmm.
Say the United States, all 50 states are multi-sig,
Mm-hmm.
and you need 26 of them to make a transaction. That means you could lose 25 states and still have access to your treasury.
Yep.
You know, that's obviously not going to happen,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
make it into something like that, right? Where it's super distributed. Nothing, no country could ever gain access. Like, so then, like, what is your return on investment of war? So, like, the only reason why you would be committing war is so you'll be a burning capital
Mm-hmm.
regardless because you're on this fixed money standard. So unless you've taken control of all the Bitcoin and you don't allow your citizens to own it, and then you debase it only for your citizens, but then you're gonna get fucked in trade, and there's all these bad things that are gonna happen. But like you can't confiscate wealth anymore through war. So like a lot of times in war, you'd conquer your enemy, you'd get to their gold vault, you take their gold, you force them to transact in some shitty currency, so you continue siphoning the wealth
Mm-hmm.
from them, and you take their real wealth, and then you continue going. But in Bitcoin, that can't happen
Mm-hmm.
because you go invade me, and you kill me. Then you don't get my money. It's just you killed me in cold blood. You maybe get my resources. So I could see war happening for resources. So like maybe oil or some type of
Yep.
climate.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like what are you really doing? So there's this huge diminishing return on war now if you can't confiscate the wealth. So that's like a huge burden on even starting war to begin with.
Yeah.
So I feel
Yeah.
like that incentive alone will drive less wars in
Yeah.
itself.
And we do know through history, times of war or times that the societies operated off of hard currencies, there is less war because, those that control that money don't want to lose the money because you can only spend as much as you have.
Exactly.
And ironically, we transition into these other forms of money like we've seen with the dollar that can be inflated. There can be more of it that is created, and it's needed to be done to go to war, right? So
Yeah.
the war
So
debts are always what brings that on.
yeah, I mean, the founding fathers always said like if you take out debt for war, you always get paid back whole. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously that stopped happening at some point. But like yeah, and like the Roman times, I think what they were doing is they were taking in gold coins or whatever, and they were clipping them. So they would just clip them and make them smaller. So every coin that they took in, they would clip it, make it smaller. So you're debasing your currency that way, and they would still call it the same amount.
Mm-hmm.
So they would do it that way, or like they would remelt it with 10% fake metal, and then you're talking about that was more primitive times, and then we're talking about paper. But now it's like you can't do that with Bitcoin. Like you can't debase it either. Like if you're strictly talking Bitcoin, like if how can you clip Bitcoin to say one Bitcoin isn't one Bitcoin?
Right.
Like everyone knows one Bitcoin is X amount of Satoshis.
Right.
Uh, so you can't do that anymore. So like all the incentives are changing, and it's just kind of forcing the hand of, hey, we need to work together, peace,
Mm-hmm.
if we want to be prosperous. So like there is a lot to discover there in terms of just how it will change nations and people in general, and how the world kind of views war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, one of the books that I really enjoy that we've talked about, I think I've showed it on here before,
Oh yeah.
is
The
this
book
one
of
right here, the Book
Satoshi.
of Satoshi. This right now is, I think that this is the current Bitcoin Bible until the other Bitcoin Bible comes out. But this book right here uh, is a consolidation of all of Satoshi Nakamoto's emails and threads on the Bitcoin chat forum, or including the emails that he had sent on the cypherpunk email list.
Yep.
And this is right here. This is the writings and the words of Satoshi.
Who was he?
Who exactly who was this person? Well, this is the best
He,
book that
she.
I found. He, she, they was the best book that I found that talks about it. And it's just fascinating. It doesn't matter who Satoshi is
No.
at the end of the day. That's something that is understood, is that the technology itself is not controlled by one individual. The closest relationship that I try to draw people's attention to with understanding like what Bitcoin is from a technology is like email. Email is an open source
Yeah.
technology that was created and it was launched and no one controlled it after that. Um, Satoshi was they, he, she were a group of people that looked at existing projects or past projects and then figured out a way to how to align them where they all work together going forward. I think probably would have seen the Nobel Peace Prize. Not that any prizes really matter at that by now from this group of people, but um, again, what matters is that this is at least an escape. It's an alternative to the system that we have now, which has let us down as a society, but which is
Hmm.
also currently failing. So, if you're someone that is looking to learn more about Bitcoin, or you're seeing some of the signs around you about what's going on in the current financial system or around the world, this it's important to know that this is a technology right now that is probably one of the only things that gives me a lot of faith going forward, is the fact that like we have an alternative,
Yeah.
and it is a better alternative than what we have today, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen so far.
Yeah. I mean, it's self sovereignty in its finest. So
Yeah.
like, um, you are responsible when you buy this Bitcoin and you hold it yourself. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is what you're getting. So like, um, it may sound really overwhelming to the not your keys, not your Bitcoin. So then, how do I own it? Well, you could start by letting an exchange hold it. Obviously, I don't think someone should buy Bitcoin and immediately rip it off an
Mm-hmm.
exchange with no knowledge of the system. You want to buy a little bit, understand it, get skin involved, learn more, and you'll know why you need to take it off the exchange. You can't just be ignorant about it, because at the end of the day, like the better world that you want requires everyone to be more responsible for their own actions, and including yourself. So you can't just push this thing off on somebody else anymore if you want the privilege to have this.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I think that's like a really important point to kind
Yeah.
of for people to understand, is like it's going to be overwhelming at first. Just take it slow. I don't think anything bad is going to happen right now, at least in terms of Bitcoin. So you'll have time to learn about it and learn why you need to take it off an exchange and hold it, because you are holding probably one of the most powerful tools
Mm-hmm.
we've created since. And it's like what what Saylor says is like this is like the creation of fire for humanity in terms of money. We're storing monetary energy, human value for could be eternity. Nobody really knows like
Mm-hmm.
what's going to proceed, what's going to come after the internet. So I see it as long as the internet exists, your energy should exist forever. So like you have to kind of think of that conceptually, and like, you got to get to that level. It's like the rabbit hole is very deep, and there's so many things that Bitcoin is. Like it's more than money. Like it is something we don't even fully know what it's going to be, and that's why it's so valuable. It's gold is a rock, that can last the test of time, but this is something that can evolve with us. And so like we can really make this into something, you know, in 20 years, like what is Bitcoin going to be? It's probably going to be a lot different than what it is right now.
My last question: are we the disciples then? This is back to the biblical view of this.
We
We
could
toyed
be.
with this idea here,
Yeah.
and let's hear us out here. If Bitcoin is a,
Okay.
a record of truth going forward, it's documentation of right of truth. If it is a technology that's so vital to man, like it will bring mankind into this new period of enlightenment. And if you look at the last kind of Renaissance and stuff, again, talking about like Catholicism and the church and state, that was that kind of explosion of a period that controlled that next, few hundred years or whatever. So are we a part of those early disciples or people that are living this life of like it that that second coming of Christ, the new enlightenment? Like, is this something that's a reality? This is crazy to think about,
Yeah.
folks, but this is really what we're going through
I'm
right
going to
now.
try to like make it
It's
make
really where we're
sense.
going right now.
I'm going to try to make it make sense cuz like I have this picture in my head, and so I'm going to try to get it out right. But so it could be. So we are kind of living in this new age of truth through verification. And so like what is that going to do to people if they have this anchor towards truth always? Like you can't question it anymore. It's always truth. And that's really going to kind of bring into it's going to kind of attack like the old, in my opinion, it might attack like Christianity, for example, because like to me, the whole religious experience is based off of one person's account, so it's
Mm-hmm.
based off of trust,
Mm-hmm.
not verification.
Yep.
Like there's no way for you to verify that anything in the Bible
Mm-hmm.
really existed, because it could just be someone's experience, and that can be manipulated by whoever has control of the book at the time,
Yep.
and how that gets
Mm-hmm.
translated and passed down. So I think we might see the shift in values where people start valuing this network as like, okay, this is like something off of verification, like, and it's brought all these great changes to my life and how I view my life, and it brought these changes that say religion didn't bring to my life. Like, what could this truth be like? Um, so I feel like it's going to kind of attack a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of this that trust part of religion, and say, like, were we right? Like, or because then you're starting to talk about like where did we come from? Like, and we're talking like eternal life, eternal energy. What does that mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if eternal life is like what everyone is kind of talking about, and in the Bible, like, does that mean digital? Like what does that mean? And like, if you've kind of had experienced these other forms of consciousness, like that's not trust, that's verification. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing that, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have these experiences where you feel this other form of energy, like if we're creating energy that lasts forever, like we're creating eternal life. Like, and that's like kind of what energy, like, does that make sense? Like the
Yeah.
energy you
Yeah.
experience in these other forms of
Yeah.
consciousness, like who's to say like that is not an embodiment of the creation of eternal life somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else? And like you're really questioning who you are and
Yeah.
why you're here, and there, you could go so far deep into that, but I feel like it really does start to challenge a few of those assumptions of religion, because you're anchoring the truth, and
Mm-hmm.
we discovered it.
And we're using energy,
Energy.
power,
Yeah.
code, and everything that we have and see today is energy at the end of the day. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So I think I think that's a good way to end this, though. So again, Bitcoin, money, peace. It makes total sense because what is Bitcoin? It's money,
It is money.
and
Creates
it
peace.
creates peace. I think it's so poetic.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, But that's it, man. I think that's gonna be it for today. So again, Bitcoin's price right now is at 19,500. Nope, we're at 19,794.
Jesus Christ.
So 19,794. So maybe we cross tonight. Might cross tonight.
Wait,
I hope.
794? Dude, we're like $100 off from fucking all time high. Hit the Coinbase. Switch the chart to Coinbase.
All right. Let me put the chart up here too. Put the chart up
We
here.
might be something might be
All
happening
right,
right
maybe
now.
we'll stay on the live stream, y'all. Maybe we'll stay on the live stream. All right, you like that? You like that Coinbase though? Huh?
Coinbase is at 19,675.
Normally a bit pay with that.
Nope, we haven't gone close to the top yet, but I mean, I think we just hit monthly close.
19.6.
Can you switch that to a monthly chart real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Did it close? You got to zoom in now. Yeah, so we just closed the month.
We didn't catch that.
We just closed the month at 7:00. Switches always with daylight savings time. It's either 7 or 8 p.m. So we did just print the close. So we can kind of talk about this a little bit. If you do look at the past all-time high, it looks like the months closed at 13.7 ish, which means that the top of the candle was the closing point. So the wick wasn't, a sticky price. So we didn't trade up there a lot. So we closed basically at an all-time high, way above the last close. So, in simple words, if you're selling, you're an idiot, and if you're not buying, you're an idiot. So this is going so much higher just based off of that chart alone. Like so much higher.
Yeah, and the charts are really showing a lot of strength right now too. I mean, that setup is
yeah, who knows what the month of December will do? I mean, December, November was that time frame. I think it feels like they want to make an all-time high. They, meaning like whoever the market makers are. I don't know who these people are. But it seems like an all-time high is going to be made like tonight, tomorrow, soon.
So we originally had a plan to have an all-time high party.
Yeah.
So I mean that's gonna.
We'll still do it.
We'll still do it. Either way, we're gonna do it. We're gonna be on here because if it does break through that threshold, I mean, I think we could pump, right? I mean, I think if we're on here,
Kaiser says 28K, and I was trying to think of like, okay, how did he get to 28K? And that would be based off of 2017, 2018. Where was the dollar then? I'm thinking if we did about a 20%, if we devalued by 20% this year, right? In terms of our money, so we devalued the dollar by 20%. What's 20% of 2,000 or 20,000? That would be 4,000, right? So
the 28,000.
28,000, right? Because I'm trying to do the math. Yeah, that'll be 24,000. I was trying to figure out how he got that number. He's saying 28,000 is the pullback. Like, how the fuck do you get a number when it's at an all-time high anymore? Like, I don't see because you don't have it. You don't. Yeah, it's all price discovery. So I don't know how he got that number, but like I said, I think you're gonna get like that anti-FOMO. It's like whoever's selling right now is got to be either they were so scarred from 2017 that they're getting out even, or like I just don't even know. Like I don't know who's selling anymore. Like it just doesn't make sense. Is it just miners at this point?
No, I think it's well. I mean, we know that every day the daily supply is being bought up by the institutions and stuff. So
get your Bitcoin now before you can't touch it.
Yeah, I mean that's the story here. I mean, this is what we've been talking about for a while now.
At the end of the day, like what's going on? Like if you have the hardcore hodlers and the weak hands, we'll say the weak hands will have a target price to sell. If you assume that the institutions go directly to the miners, you have no more new supply into the system,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you just run that over time, no new supply comes into the system.
Yep.
The institutions go to the miners. Maybe they entice them by paying a premium over
Mm-hmm.
spot to get access to that liquidity. So then you only have the weak hands selling at that point,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're being bought up by hodlers over time. Like you
Right.
might have traders and whatnot, but
Right.
that liquidity is going to go what seems like to zero because most hodlers don't have a selling price. Like there's no amount of fiat that a true Bitcoin maxi is going to accept.
Yeah, and a
So
lot of the market is driven
so
by
we might see just crazy liquidity
yeah.
crunch on all ends of the spectrum. Like miners are just selling to institutions, and there's no more Bitcoin for the the retail guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very that's a possibility. I don't really know. I mean, it just feels like there's not enough Bitcoin anymore. I think
Yeah.
like 3 months ago, like we just hit this point where it's just like, oh, there's not enough Bitcoin anymore, and like you're moving the price up to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of what it feels like. Even though if you're a little guy, like you're probably not
Google
going to
search
move it.
volume's down too, so we know
Yeah.
the folks that are watching this live stream or the retail people, there's not as much of an awareness or hype around Bitcoin
Hmm.
right now than there was at this last peak that you see here
And it's like
in 2017, right? Like right now, we're about to crush through
the all-time high,
the
and there's like
all-time
no one
high,
is no
and
one is like
no
happy
one's
about
talking
it.
about it. No
Yeah.
one's.
So like, and I kind of heard this, like it was kind of near that realm on one of the podcasts that Michael Saylor was on. They were talking about the all-time or the 100K party that's going to happen.
Mhm.
Uh, Good luck getting an invite to that. It would be awesome if we could get in, but I don't think we will. But they're talking about this party, and at the end of it, I think it was Saylor. He's like, "You want to know something funny? They're not even questioning if 100K is going to be hit. They're just it's 100K is going to be hit. When are we throwing the party?"
Mm.
So it's like it's not even a question anymore. And I feel like a lot of people in the space, if you've kind of gone through this rabbit hole, like like this is your only like this is the only chance. There's no question that this has to happen.
Mm.
And as more and more people come in, it's just like it's fulfilling the prophecy. And I feel like that's why you're kind of getting this vibe that we have now. It's like the people that are in get it. And there is very little celebration at the all time high because they know ultimately where this is going. So the all time high really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And and as the price goes up higher, that's just less Bitcoin they can buy for themselves.
Just got to stack sats.
You have to stack
Stack
sats.
sats. At the
So
end of the day,
yeah, I mean, just start stacking. I mean, there's plenty of ways to do it. Have you used Fold?
I have used Fold,
Does it
so
work?
I've talked about Fold. Yeah, it
Because
works. Yep.
because I just I don't know. I see so many people talking about it. It's like, okay, get Fold for Christmas shopping. You could bring in
Most
a
of my
bit.
all my Amazon purchases are on Fold.
Really?
Yeah. So
Because
yeah,
like
Fold. What is Fold? Fold is an app where you can get Bitcoin cash back and for buying gift cards. So if I'm going to purchase something on Amazon, I'll go on the Fold app,
so
and
you buy
then
like $100 gift
buy a
card or
$100
whatever.
gift card or $50 gift card, and then I'll get 3 to 5% back or whatever in Bitcoin, and then I will redeem it on my Amazon account and pay for my purchases that way.
How did like what's the business model on that? Like how is that not a scam?
They're probably an affiliate of some sort, and they're
Okay.
probably getting paid in
Yeah,
that.
because like
Yeah,
that money has to come from
yeah,
somewhere. So it's
they're
like
attracting attention
unless
to.
they're like really trading the Bitcoin, I don't know. Because like I was also thinking the same thing with BlockFi. Like they said, 2021 should be the year that not a debit card, a credit card
Mm-hmm.
like comes out. And if if there is no fees, I'm definitely in. If there's fees, I'm probably still in. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I look at my reward points for my credit card, and I'm like, wow, in the dollar value, that's a lot of Bitcoin, like that I would just have had.
passively,
So it's
passively,
coming, and like it's
passively.
passively getting
Yeah,
sats.
and we're gonna cover a lot about that with
Yeah,
Sats, stacking Sats, and doing all this stuff.
just buy
Just buy. At the end of the day,
Kraken,
yeah,
Coinbase,
Coinbase,
Swan.
Kraken, Swan, Bitcoin.
I think River's a new one.
Yeah,
There's a ton of places to buy
we'll
Bitcoin
make sure
now.
we go over all these too, and again, so Bitcoin is ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it's the most important thing to understand is that like a lot of what we see in society today is because of the financial system and the currency, right?
That's kind of the argument that I see.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I think it's driving the worst out of people. Um, like people don't know who to blame. A lot of people don't haven't learned about finance, or they
Mm-hmm.
haven't had the time to
Mm-hmm.
really invest their knowledge or
Right.
their their intelligence into understanding it, and they kind of just base it off of what they know. And so people are acting in these ways like because it's a broken first principle system. Like you don't like we're it's hard to not get philosophical, but it's like what does a broken money system do to your subconscious? Like you don't really know. Like can you tap into your subconscious and extract that information? Like unless you're like crazy meditating and you have these breakthrough thoughts, like I don't know. And I feel like the system of debt and the system of spend now, the high time preference, it's like these all have to be related. And like there's so many examples of how just even going through like the rabbit hole really changes those principles and changes people. And I think it has a lot to say with like just what we're seeing. And there's so much unrest, and it's like student loans, the bailout for that Biden's talking about, the bailouts for just COVID and all that. Like that's only accelerating the process. It's like we're killing the little guys. We're funneling all of our capital into the big guys who have these algorithms, and they're the ones that are benefiting from like the technology,
Mm-hmm.
and they're reinvesting that money, and it's only going to speed it up.
Yeah.
Like we're only compounding faster to our own doom of where humans can't compete with a computer. We
Mm-hmm.
get displaced, and there's no new jobs to create, and like Bitcoin is going to slow that down. I don't know if we ultimately get there, like, but who knows what the world is like at that point. But we need to slow it down for sure, and I think that's kind of the argument for Bitcoin is like it'll change the system,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll slow that compounding nature of technology down a little bit in terms of job displacement.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think I think history is written in terms of like we've suppressed volatility for so long that it needs to come out. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any avoiding it. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's always that saying is like you can't, you don't destroy volatility. You just suppress it until later. So you look at how peaceful the world has been. It's abnormally peaceful after World War II. Like in reality, like there was no crazy wars globally, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that doesn't happen, but I think we'll see volatility in other ways too. Just inner country.
Volatility means opportunity, y'all.
That's true.
You're living during an incredible time, no matter what, and Bitcoin is a part of that future. So
I hope it's here for good because I
I
mean,
think it is going to be here
life
for good.
feels pretty good right now, and
Yeah.
just knowing like what I know about Bitcoin, and I feel like just doing a little bit of research beyond the common person will get you well situated for what's to come.
Cool. Yeah, man. All right, and we'll make sure we touch base too on this all-time high party. I don't know if it's going to break tonight, but we might actually be on tomorrow at some point.
Not tomorrow for me.
Not tomorrow for
Maybe
Jack.
if anything, it's going to be Wednesday.
So maybe we'll hit an all-time high on
We're
Wednesday.
planning what? We're just going to get absolutely drunk,
So we're
wasted,
bringing the tequila. We'll make sure
tequila,
it'll be a party. It'll
and
be a
we're gonna
party.
have a live chat open.
Yeah,
And no, there's
if
gonna
you
be
were
no Bitcoin structure. We might actually talk about
yeah,
things besides Bitcoin.
yeah, if you were following me during the halving, you would have seen the halving party. Solo party was kind of like that. So this one will actually be another person. It'll be good.
Yeah,
All right, man. Cool.
sounds
All
good.
right, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. Hope you learned something tonight. If you have any questions at all about Bitcoin, definitely leave them in the comments. Share the video if you liked it. And
You can find us on Twitter, both of us,
yep.
and we do have a Telegram group now. So we actually have that. We situated that today, so now people can actually talk to us.
Yeah.
And you'll find that's where a lot of our banter will be. We'll post some charts and just whatever's going on. So that'll be actually a very good way to connect with us as well, and you can get involved.
I'll put it in the comments afterwards. This is something I was supposed to update on, was putting the actual like Twitter handles in there and stuff. But it's at BTC money piece.
No,
So
Bitcoin money piece fully spelled out on Telegram.
we're gonna make sure we put in the comments. So look out for our comments, share the video, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
Yeah.